Hi, this is Susan with StArt, StudioArt.com, and I have a Facebook group that's StArt Stampin' Up Art. And you know we are heading into the holidays when you see one frame that has a holiday paper promotion and Halloween at the same time. But I have to tell you, the Stampin' Up holiday catalog this year is amazing. It's just awesome. So if you don't have a copy yet and you would like a copy, please get in touch with me, Susan at StartStudioArt.com, or you can ask to join the Facebook group at StArt Stampin' Up Art, and I would be happy to send you a copy of the catalog if you don't already have a demonstrator. I'm one of those demonstrators that doesn't have a bazillion followers just yet. So when I do get an inquiry or an order from someone, I do a little happy dance. So it would be great to hear from you. But I do want to tell you really quickly something I'm doing for my customers through this September promotion. So what Stampin' Up is doing is offering a package of designer series paper, dashing along, free, but the only way you can get it is with a order of 250 subtotal. So there's a couple ways you can get in on this. For my customers that are ordering through my current September hostess code, once I get that hostess code to $250, I will put the names of those customers that use the hostess code, I will put their names in a drawing. So for every $50 you spend with me, you get your name in the drawing once. Spend $100 or more subtotal, you'll have 2 entries in the drawing. And I'll kind of keep an eye on this and change up the hostess codes so we can maximize how many of those we can earn. Now, the other ways that you can earn these, I don't think it's too early. If there's something like a big shot, or even you have a really nice list of goodies that you're hoping from the holiday catalog, go ahead and let your family and friends know this is what I really want for Christmas, not some of the things you get that you're like, gee, thanks. And you know, maybe you can come up with the $250 all by yourself. You will still get the hostess rewards points, as well as the free paper. And I'll show you real quick. It's a beautiful paper, double-sided. I really love this green starry, and then you've got the stripes that match. Just really awesome paper. I made a few examples. I did this with the wood texture paper, and the die is part of the suite. We've got the dashing deer stamps and detailed deer dies. And so you can kind of see pretty quickly, you can mix them up. I have a very dear friend, Tammy, who loves shaker cards. And when I did this card originally, I looked at it and I thought, I really can't avoid doing that as a shaker card for Tammy. So here it is, a little bit different color combination, a little bit different layout. And then I hope you can see, I do a combination of things in my shaker cards, so they move nicely and kind of draw your attention. But then I dressed it up with the silver. And in this case, I took the die, there's a stag die in the set, and I turned it into a doe by taking off the antlers. That way she could be with her little fawn. So that gives you an idea of that promotion. And again, that runs through September. So, on to our card today. So, I've got a few of these out to show you. It was a little bit of an evolution. And first of all, I have to thank Eddie Sabat. Posted his original version of this card, and I thought it was just amazing. And I went about trying to replicate something like it, and the first one I came up with was this because of the way I used the Woodlands embossing folder. In this case, I finished the background and then embossed and used a little finger dauber to add the color, but it went places where I didn't really want it. And so it went dark for me to kind of blend those through, which some people may totally prefer. I know my 13-year-old son prefers it, but I was really looking for something that had a little more contrast and a little more bright. So we won't fiddle around too much longer, and I'll show you how I got there, and we'll have a little fun. So first off, you could start this card with Whisper White paper. I would suggest using heavyweight Whisper White, and then add your crushed curry, pumpkin pie, and cherry cobbler inks. But I thought I'd save a step, make it a little more streamlined. So I'm actually starting with crushed curry cardstock. And then what I have, this might be 2, but it'll work just fine. Oh, it is 2. I have full adhesive back Post-its, and I love these. Let me show you the packaging. The front of the packaging isn't totally clear that they are full adhesive back, but the little bit of tacky runs across the sheet. So they're just, I'm hooked on them for doing techniques like sponging, because you don't have to worry a lot about where the sticky edge is, or that you're gonna lose something. So I'm just starting out with a sponge brayer, and these are fairly new to me, and I have to say I really love them. I don't mind getting my hands messy, but you don't get as messy with these as you do when you take a section of sponge and cut it down, which is what I've done historically. So I'm loving these. You still want to be a little bit cautious as you first put pigment on, if you don't want it too heavy all in one, and you just get rolling. So I might be a little bit too cautious even than I needed to be, but I'm just gonna start to build up some color over the moon, and then we'll have a little bit of color transition coming down the side here. It's so much fun, just kind of relaxing too to watch the color build up. It's not bad. Maybe just a little bit more there. A little bit down here on the bottom. Then I'm going to follow up the cherry cobbler sponging with some pumpkin pie. Oops, a little lint there. I'm just going to build up a little more color here, moving it down and around. Kind of soothing to do this. A little more towards the bottom. I do want that crushed curry to show through a little bit, but I also want to make sure when I lift the mask that the moon is defined. So got a little bit of a line there I want to work away, but I'm not going to get too gripped. There's some other things going on with the card, and I do something I haven't seen other demos do. And it kind of comes from having a watercolor background, but once I get the color how I like it here in the background, I'm going to mist this. So I think that looks pretty good. Take off this mask, and voila, there's my moon. The tackiness on these will last for a little while, so you can use these over and over. So I'll just set that aside. And then I do think it looks a little bit harsh to have that moon really blasting out bright there, so I'm going to try to get just a little bit of color across there. There we go. And I think that looks awesome. Solid there. All right. And then I just use a mister, and I'm going to try to do this so you can see it on camera, but I tend to start kind of far away from the cardstock and move in on it just so I don't end up with it getting too super saturated, but I think I missed. I think this is gonna work, and you can get the idea. So I like that. I like the way that that will make the color and the pigment kind of granulate and look a little more misty, a little more, I don't know, a little more like nighttime, a little more like a nice Halloween nighttime with a little bit of that texture or granulation. So I think the better way than to get the trees is to apply the ink to the embossing folder. And that's this one. I applied the ink to the embossing folder. And you may remember I said this one I embossed and then put the ink over, but I had a really hard time keeping it from going where I didn't want it. So I like the more contrast. I think I have a little bit of a preference for that, so that's what we're going to go for this time. And I found I was using my early espresso, which will translate to pretty much black over top of that crushed curry. But my early espresso pads, both of them, were really, really juicy. So I went ahead and pulled my soft suede, and it looked really good. It was easier for me to apply the color to this is the side the trees are embossed, and not have to do a bunch of cleanup before I put it through the Big Shot. So I'm just gonna kind of pad this, look for my results, and then kind of fill in any hits or skips. Hoping you can see that all well enough. You might have to be a little bit purposeful about hitting all these trees. To be quite honest, I like it when it has some highlights and lows. I think that's part of the character of each one being its own. Ooh, I got pretty lucky there. I've just got a couple spots. I'm gonna take a Q-tip and clean some of that. I'm gonna have to wet the Q-tip, but I'll clean some of that out of there and not let it translate too much onto my backdrop. So I just misted the Q-top with my mister. And again, some of that little bit of like atmospheric or grungy, I think it looks cool, and I think it's totally appropriate for a Halloween card, but I just don't want to have too much land, especially where the moon is, and detract from how pretty that color contrast is. So there it is. And I'm going to be a little bit strategic how I place the moon, and let me put that through the Big Shot, and I'll be right back. So here it is, and I love it. I love that the soft suede has some darker and lighter sections and really just gives it that much more interest. Of course, you could use the early espresso or true black if you really wanted it to black out, but I like the idea of the trees kind of receding to the background a little bit so that my bats pop out in the foreground. So to finish the card, I'm using the Spooky Sweets stamp set and the coordinating bat punch. If you bundle them, you can save 10% on the set, but what I've done, I used the Happy Halloween stamp actually on the scrap from cutting the background crushed curry. So my crushed curry background is 3 3/4 by 5, and that leaves me with these 1-inch strips, and you can pretty quickly stamp a bunch of these little Happy Halloweens. And I trimmed them down just a little bit more, which will help if I had something that wasn't quite lined up on the strip. But it also allowed me to use a stitch shape square to use as a mat for the Happy Halloween. So I will pop that up on some dimensionals and then punch out a set of bats, maybe some extras, but they go flying. I always giggle. My son and I worked on some, I think it was Valentine's cards, and whatever we were punching, stars or hearts, went flying, but I would punch and he would catch. So every time things go flying, it always makes me giggle. But in any event, I will use mini dimensionals. Stampin' Up! Knows what they were doing, because these mini dimensionals fit really well on the back of each of these little bat die cuts, and they disappear once you put the bat in place. So I'll get my bats flying around and put them there. Pretty straightforward on how to finish that. And then I'll just show you, I used the No Tricks, Just Treats stamp on the inside of the card. And I reached back to Jar of Haunts for the candy corn. And then just used my white Stampin', what do they call it? Yeah, Stampin' chalk marker. And I put the white tips, the white on the tip and the bottom. And then for the yellow to actually show up over the pumpkin pie, I used Daffodil Delight Stampin' Right marker and get that little bit of color. So that's how I finished that. And I thought it was pretty fun. The bat stamp that comes with the set, I had the bats on the envelope, like flying into the envelope or coming across the envelope. I just think when I get mail, it's really nice to go to the mailbox and see something like that and go, oh great, this is going to be something fun. This is a good news kind of mail. So there they are, and I hope you liked it. I'm going to wish you a happy holidays early, because we are heading into the holidays. And again, if you want to get in touch, if you have some questions, Susan at StArtStudioArt.com, and I would be excited if you wanted to use me as your demonstrator. Thanks so much.